Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the AI agent market. Loaded up for discussion today, we have ETH being up. It's playing catch ups, up 6% in the last 24 hours, 15% in the last 7 days. In the same period of time, Bitcoin and Sol are down 1%. We're going to be talking Hyperliquid, TGE, very prominent trading platform, and L1. 31% will be distributed today in that airdrop event. And finally, appeals court rules against OFAC, says Tornado Cash sanctions are unlawful. That's the big case on Tornado Cash. A little win there against OFAC. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs and AI agents, and a discussion on the general state of the market. So stay tuned for that. We've got Legendary and Sammy in the co-host seats. Cannot wait to get into it today. Just a reminder, friends, before we do that, nothing that we say here is financial advice, because we do not know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Thursday. It is the 28th of November. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, doing pretty well. Kind of playing around with my camera because I noticed I'm on the wrong one. Going to change that in a second.
Okay.
But I'm really excited for the weekend, to be honest, because
Why?
it's base season. There's a lot going on. Obviously, been spending an insane amount of time on virtuals, but there's so much more going on there, and I can't wait for just the weekend of being able to not leave the house and spending more time with my loved agents on base and explore a bit more.
I like it. This is a common theme, Legendary, where you get to the weekend and just desperately want to spend more time on chain. Is this like just how it's going to be for the foreseeable future? We've actually been talking about this for a while, right? When the bull market started heating up, it seemed to be the time that the weekend became the time where you got to do the work that you just couldn't quite get a chance to do during the week. Is that how it is for you now? You just like completely locked in that respect?
Yeah, I think silly season is until inauguration date. I had considered to go to Art Basel in Miami and to do a bit more travel towards the end of the year. Honestly, canceled all of those plans because I'm very willing to sacrifice on sleep time and social time until the inauguration and just make the most out of that crazy period.
Fair enough. We'll be talking about like some of the things you're up to, what your strategy, how you are strategizing, and where your attention's going in a second. Sam, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What's going on your side?
I'm good. Unfortunately, I can't lock in fully on the weekend, get that competitive advantage, because I've got to go and watch Wicked, the movie.
No
But that will
way.
only be for a brief period of time. So I'm fretting that in that period of time where I'm unable to access my phone, will stuff pop off. So yeah, keeping an eye out, but have notifications on my phone about.
I'll message you after the movie to ask you, did you see this?
No, message him during the movie saying, "Did you see it?" And don't specify
Yeah,
what it is.
you could do that, and then I could excuse myself and walk out. No, I will watch it.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. I mean, we've been talking about like personal strategies and how we're managing this stuff at the moment. I had another night the other day where I woke up at like 2 in the morning, and I checked I checked the charts, I think, because for the first time I now have an app on my phone which actually has the charts. I never had that before. And yeah, it's like a real personal psychological, not stress, but it's a psychological journey endeavor that we're going through at the moment, because
Walk,
there's so
walk me through that routine, because I'm doing the same right now. Like, how does it work for you out practically? I hear a lot of people saying that they wake up during the night, they check the charts, and then they go back to sleep. Like, do you just literally, you're in bed, you look at the phone, check the charts, see that everything is good, close your eyes and sleep again? Or do you get up, walk around the house, do something now that you're up in the middle of the night? Or how does it actually work out in practice for you?
Well, the craziest thing, I'm happy to share this because I don't know if anyone else is going through this as well. It might help to know that someone else is going through it. 2 times recently, when it was maybe a bit calmer, I would just wake up, check, maybe I'd scroll Twitter for a second, then go back to bed. But 2 times recently, I've been like not drenched in sweat, but like really like sweating as well. And it was as if, I don't know, it was as if my body was guessing that I was entirely underwater on some overnight position or something. And so I'd have to go down and get a glass of water to like actually cool down. And like it's the winter here, so it's not exactly hot. So I don't know where that's coming from. It's like internal combustion. My body computer is overheating. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else is going through that, but that's just wild. Legendary, can you relate? I see Funky with his hand up as well. We'll come to him in a sec.
Yeah, I can relate, but for me, it typically happens more because I go to bed so late. So it happens like I typically go to sleep at 2 or 3 a.m. these days. So I kind of wake up once at like 5 a.m., do the phone checking real quick. I feel stressed in that moment. And then I typically feel better because everything is still like going up or hasn't at least crashed to zero. And then I do fall asleep until like 7 or 8 and sleep for another 2 to 3 hours. And then I'm back to basically the day routine, which is constantly with the charts on.
I did notice that actually. I think you're right around the time frames, because I've seen things start to run at like 5, 6 a.m. our time, and I wake up about an hour too late. So I think that window of opportunity is definitely something that I need to be a bit more like observant of. But when I'm up late though, I'm messaging you guys, and B-Check's not responding, but you're responding. So I think you're like a late owl at like 1 a.m. and then B-Check kind of has his beauty sleep. I don't know. Is that true?
I mean, I was actually messaging yesterday because I was up, but in general, yes. In general, I'll go to bed pretty late. Sorry, pretty early, and then I'll get up pretty early. But yeah, that's kind of getting wrecked at the moment. Just seeing some funny YouTube comments on this. Funky will come to you in a second for your anecdote, and then of course we'll get into the main headlines as usual and all of the analysis in a second. It's clearly striking a chord with some people. DJ Soy on the YouTube comment saying, "I slept through my 2 a.m. alarms for a mint, and it's sold out. I will wake up midnight and visualize what open shitcoin positions I have and imagine the chart." This used to happen to me when I was a teacher, where like if I had like an important class or a class that was difficult, I couldn't sleep because I would be teaching the class in my head. Like I'd planned the lesson, and then me trying to sleep, I would just be teaching the class, and so I couldn't sleep because it would be like I was teaching it. Solas said, I think this is pretty wise, and usually this was what it was like before the bull market. My phone is banned from my bedroom, downtime activated on all Apple devices at 9:30 p.m. Outstanding. That's absolutely outstanding. That is how I would have been living before the market got like this. Funky, saw you with your hand raised. What's your thought on this? Quick reflection here before we hit the main headlines as usual.
GM fam, I'm with Solus. I live that life. Basically, the do not disturb goes on at 8 p.m. It stays downstairs. I never look at my phone, anything like that. But I just wanted to say, especially for my American friends in the audience, happy Thanksgiving. Wanted to say how grateful I am to be part of this show almost on a nearly daily basis and call you guys my friends. And last thing I want to say, Legendary, I don't think that sleep's going to come after Inauguration Day, buddy, because this just like when it's going to get started. And if you remember, some of the strongest altcoin action in previous cycles is after January, like usually February through April. So you guys need to sleep some more.
Get the beauty sleep then. Appreciate you, Funky. Appreciate you as well. Happy Thanksgiving to all our American friends on the other side of the pond. Great to see you with us, those who are there and elsewhere as well. Right, let's get into the headlines, get you up to speed with everything that's been happening in the last 24 hours, starting with the price action. We have Bitcoin up just a couple of percent to 95.6K. ETH is stronger, up 5% at 3.6K. Solana up 1%, also at $237. Just quick one on the meme coin side of things. We have Doge up 4% to 40 cents. Got Pepe up 8%. Often running as well. When ETH is strong, Pepe is strong as well. Bonk's up 3%, Whiff's up at 1%. Popcat's up 3%, Mog's up 4%. Mostly green actually on the meme coin side of things, but no like huge movers, I would say. SPX, Murad's coin, is actually up 27%. So that's maybe one of the bigger movers on that side. Otherwise, mostly green, but in the smaller numbers. Getting into the headlines themselves, we have ETH playing catch up, which Sammy's going to do a little bit of a breakdown on in a second. Got the Hyperliquid TGE today. 31% will be distributed. That is hugely hyped, no pun intended. Legendary is going to be breaking that down in a bit. And then yesterday, the appeals court ruled against OFAC, saying Tornado Cash sanctions were unlawful. Remember, this was a case where in September 22, 6 Ethereum blockchain users filed a lawsuit against OFAC, challenging its authority to designate Tornado Cash as a specially designated national. So this is that whole issue with Tornado Cash and it being used as a mixer. So success there against OFAC. Some notable sales: Jack Butcher Latent. This is one of his physical pieces selling for 4.86 ETH. That's a nice sale. CryptoPunk Blonde selling for 50 ETH. Pudgy Penguin Wizard selling for 16.5. I know Legendary is going to take us through the NFT market now. I know there's been some green action over there, Legendary.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look. It is, as you said, a very green day. Bored Apes are up 15% over the last 24 hours. It's mostly due to, Cyrus had pointed out, a fresh wallet loaded up $6 million and just started to bid apes, and did that with quite some market moving intensity, to put it like that. And that puts the floor to 14.6 ETH. A similar movement on the Pudgy side. Pudgy's up 9%, 9.3% to be precise, over the last 24 hours, sitting at a 12.65 ETH floor. And Azuki's, they are unchanged. They are flat, 4.62 ETH floor for them. Doodles, they managed to cross the 2 ETH floor again. They are at a 2.1 ETH floor again, up 6.4% over the last 24 hours.
I like it. Excellent roundup. A lot of green, so that's always fun to see. Back to the roundup to get you up to speed with everything else. We had the mayor of Canada, the third largest city, the mayor of Canada's third largest city, Vancouver, announces plans for Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Remember, there's been various companies coming through and saying that they're considering Bitcoin as part of a reserve. It was Rumble, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, that said the same. MetaMask announces US users can purchase crypto via Venmo. Hong Kong plans crypto tax break for hedge funds and billionaire families. I was reading that article from the FT. That sounded pretty significant. They want to compete with Singapore and Switzerland as, you know, as a place to attract this crypto capital. Interesting, on the AI side, Vader publishes a new agentic ad framework that could disrupt real KOLs. This is the story where you basically get to send it a certain amount of money, and then the agent will shill the person's project in proportion to how much they've sent, which is a very interesting concept. Tensor announces their new trading app Vector is now live. Remember, that's the NFT marketplace Tensor on the Solana side, branching off into the meme coin trading game as well. That's a mobile app. ACK announces the grand exhibition at Carnegie Hall in 2025. And pretty historic, Gondi announces largest NFT loan ever. Gondi's our NFT lending partner. They announced a $2.75 million loan for seed phrases 7-trait CryptoPunk. The terms were 180 days, 17% APR, with a $41,000 origination fee. Single largest on-chain loan against any NFT in history. Amazing stuff. That's the Web3 roundup. That's everything you need to know from the past 24 hours. Legendary, before we get into the main news today, any little bits there that is catching your attention?
Yeah, definitely the Vader one with the agentic ad framework. Two thoughts came to mind on that. On the one hand, do agents, or should agents then disclose that they took money to shill a token as entities, basically? And on the other hand, it's not the first token to do that. There is a small, really small token on Solana, KOL.exe, which I had posted about. It did run up to $1 million. I think it's currently at 300K or something. That basically its whole concept is you send it tokens and it just chills them, and it chills them in proportion to how many tokens you send to them. And I think one fun part on the tokenomics is that it's because it's written in a very beautiful way. It says like every KOL, it dumps all the tokens it gets and it uses them to keep like half as profit, and the other half it uses it to buy its own token, KOL, and burn the supply. So it's basically shilling tokens to make its own token deflationary, which I think is a hilarious concept to do.
That's pretty awesome. Sam, I know you've been diving into the agent stuff and the Vader stuff specifically, which is the team who produced this kind of ad framework for agents. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm skeptical from the initial standpoint, purely because it could allude to some sort of manipulation. Like, say for instance, you can inflate a token with a low float, and then you send it to that particular agent. It might appear to have a high valuation, and it might start shilling it, but the actual value of that token might not necessarily be there, and then the team may end up dumping. So I think there has to be some, and I haven't looked into the mechanics of it, so maybe they do have some criteria in there and safeguards against that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting framework, and it can definitely pop off. And the NRN token that it was sent is, so that's ARC agents, and they're doing reinforcement learning for AI agents specifically in gaming. So it's another good project that's come to market. And Chain of Thought did a really good piece on that yesterday as well.
Nice. So, I mean, yeah, the possibilities are endless, really, with this, with the agent stuff. And I feel like we're on the cusp of something that's just slightly different to everything else that we've done before. We're gonna get into the headlines in just a moment, but what we're gonna do first, continuing slightly on the agent topic, because we think that's so interesting, we're going to get into today's weekly entrepreneurial segment called Publish and Profit, where we explain some of the key secrets and tips to making money online as a creator. As I said, we do have an agentic focus today, whilst we focus on the importance of staying relevant and moving with the trends so you don't lose the position you've built up for yourself and you keep attracting a new audience. This segment is brought to you by Little Nouns, an expansion DAO based on the famous Nouns DAO, who fund cool creative endeavors which can proliferate the Nounish meme. Now, the reason why I've been thinking about this the last few days is because of how we all said meme coins were the NFTs of this cycle, and because lots of capital and attention flow to meme coins, and the people who ignored those have largely, or in some way, lost out to some degree. And what we're witnessing right now, it feels like, is capital and attention flowing to AI agents. And I think meme coins have actually stuttered since the agent's inception and since the agents have started to rise higher in mindshare and market cap. Sam and Legendary have been prime examples of rapidly getting to grips with the new agentic market, all the possibilities they have for the future, along with assessing their valuations and creating content on the agents. So Legendary, as a creator, what have been the benefits you've experienced from being early to the trend and producing quality content on it?
Very good question. I think, first of all, if you're early to a trend, you will have to do a lot of research, and you will basically see other people who are early to the trend, which puts you in touch with some very interesting traders, founders. It's been the case for us from the modern market perspective. Sammy was the first one to bring virtuals to my attention. I think that was at a fourth of the token price right now, maybe a bit more than a month ago, something like that. He then leveraged his early interest into a relationship with Ethermage, the founder, who then was also a guest on the show. So basically, if you're early to something, before things get exposure, you really manage to connect with top tier people who will be difficult to get access to otherwise. If you were early to the restaking meta, before everyone wanted to have Eigenlayer on every podcast, it was easier to get a hold of the team. That is a massive, massive advantage. And obviously, you get an understanding of the market, which allows you to trade on that. Purely on the creator side, just because you get in touch in teams, that might enable you to have a partnership with them, that might enable you to get into an ambassador, into an advisory role. But also, honestly, when you look at the analytics, when I look at my own analytics, just being early to that means that your impressions, your follows, everything related to that will skyrocket as well if you hit a trend with that, and if you manage to establish yourself as the go-to guy for something specific. And I think that journey never stops, no matter like how small or big you are as a creator. This is like always a thing. Even Zeneca with 300, 400K followers, who is already like one of the most significant influencers in our space, is like, I am thinking to now become the single most relevant person when it comes to Base, and change my whole persona to be the Base or the Base AI guy because it's Base season. Yeah. So this thinking about what you want to focus on is never going to go away. And the earlier you are, the bigger your chances are that this actually will be massively beneficial to your account and your network that you're building.
I love it. Those are really good examples. Sam, what about you as a creator? Why did you decide to follow this agent trend rather than the meme coin trend? So I don't think you were doing that one as much, but you definitely did go hard on this agent stuff. How did you decide, or how do you decide which trends to follow?
Well, I actually think they're entwined. So I think memes ran so that memes walked so that AI agents could run. So if you think about the origins of, no, I'm serious, because the crypto rails is what makes AI agents actually kind of have that like eureka moment. So if you think about like back in 2022 when ChatGPT popped off, like there's been a lot of development since with new LLMs, new training models, all this kind of stuff, but it hasn't really got the attention. And all of a sudden you give the AI, or you align it with a token, and everyone's interested because everyone has a vested interest in that particular AI agent. They want it to go up. It's free marketing. You can tokenize the incentives. Like it adds a layer that I find super interesting. And actually that evolution of just having a meme that pumps, dumps, or maybe sustains some sort of value with attention, it actually has this tangible thing behind it. And that for me, like I find it easier to grasp fundamentals and kind of see where things are going. So I guess like for me personally, I think it's just having that interest. And if you have that interest, you're willing to go deeper than the next person is to like find all these nuances. And like, if you're just genuinely curious, like just stay curious, you'll find these trends, find these like new ventures that are actually kind of changing the market and changing the future. But to your point around base season, I fully expect like other chains to jump on it, and they're not even there yet. So like Arbitrum did a $1 million grant yesterday, I think, to get AI agents to build on their chain. Saigar did a post the other day digging into like the developer side of things, obviously closely contributing to Abstract. So I think we're just at the beginning. Like Solana popped off because it had that meme focus. Base has a certain amount of memetic attention, but has that AI drive through virtuals and through Clanker and Farcast, all this kind of stuff. But there will be other chains that we'll see kind of come to market. And I think that trend will continue. So I think we are still relatively early. And I think a lot of these top tokens are probably going to get toppled. But yeah, going back to your question, honestly, flowing where the attention is initially and then trying to predict where it goes next. And I think it went from memes to AI, and it was just like, this is a eureka moment. So.
Like it. I've definitely got some bigger thoughts on the way that the meme coin launch, the launch platform has now basically become a default launch vehicle for even things that have nothing to do with memes, right? There's like science tokens getting launched, but they're basically getting launched in the way that memes get launched. And in the same way with these agents, they're getting launched in the way that Pump Fund was launching the memes. So there's even something interesting there about like the launch strategy, which has taken inspiration from Pump Fund, basically, because I guess they think there's product market fit there. So very, very interesting stuff. Love that conversation, especially from the creator angle. We do that every single week. Shout out to Lil Nouns DAO, as always, for sponsoring this segment. Lil Nouns is an expansion DAO based on the famous Nouns DAO, who fund cool creative endeavors which can proliferate the Nounish meme. They've been one of our biggest supporters over the years, and I'd highly recommend checking them out as a gateway to the Nouns ecosystem. Right, now we're going to get into the main headlines today. We've got 30 minutes left, 3 topics. I think we're going to do a bit more on the market. So Sam's going to do some stuff on the majors, what's going on there, as well as another AI agent roundup, because I think that's pretty important at the moment. Legendary is going to do some Hyperliquid stuff, because that's one of the most hyped launches that's come out for a while, I think. And then we'll see how much time we have for the boring legal stuff, which I will take as the resident lawyer. Sam, take it away, man. We want to know about what's going on with the market. ETH is on a run, and the agents are still going. So what's the breakdown?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things with ETH that I think just have caught my attention specifically, and also the timeline. I think you look at people stating ratios with ETH BTC and Sol ETH, saying that it's just not performing. But yeah, it's got all this development that's happening. I know there's like an existential crisis with like the L2s and whether it should be built at the L1 level. But ultimately, I think that has just become oversold. And you look at the current ratios, like Sol ETH is like 0.065. So it's recovered a bit. I think the ETH BTC is at 0.038. And that's just been, if you look at the chart, it's just been absolutely crushed over the past like few months, just as like obviously Bitcoin rallied. But notably, I think if you look at the ETH ETF flows, like there's been so much inflow in the past week, which if you think about the supply demand dynamics of institutional interest, I think that can be a huge catalyst, and that's suffered previously. I think we were at negative flows at one point with like Grayscale selling down. So I think just the supply demand dynamic has shifted a little bit. People have realized, hey, like we've kind of jumped to SOL, we've sold our ETH, everyone's done it, and now they're kind of switching back. So I think that's just kind of corrected a little bit, and that's why we're seeing that. But I mean, numbers don't lie. There's so much development happening on ETH. It's just this conversation with the L2s as to whether that gets like resolved a little bit in terms of that value transfer.
Yeah, that's a great point on that. I'm going to try and find this chart for a second of the number of transactions taking place on Base at the moment has gone completely through the roof. And we were talking a while ago about, look, is there a way to bet on ETH by not holding the specific asset? And we were wondering, like, look, is it via Coinbase? Should you just buy that stock instead? I'm starting to think, I mean, I've been thinking this for a while, and I fortunately didn't, that's the one. This chart is crazy. So I think for the first time, transactions on Base have gone past, what number is that, Legendary? Is that 11 million daily?
Past 10 million, then past 11 million. Yeah. The chart that we're sharing is a 1-year chart starting last December, where transactions were at around 200, 300K. They had a spike early on in the first Base season where they jumped up to 3.5-ish mil. And then after June, it's been a constant climb, honestly. And now, as of November, when they previously were at about 5-6M, they doubled up with a massive wick upwards.
What do you attribute that to, that huge wick?
I would make the argument that Phantom and the integration of Base in Phantom has been a massive thing. It's interesting because, without wanting to sidestep the conversation, but now that I've been speaking more about AI agents, obviously I have a lot of people in my DMs asking me, what do you look at, what do you buy, how do you trade? And when it's Sol native people, they're like, what is the app to buy that? Can I do that on Photon? Because Photon has a Base section. I'm like, yeah, but you can't trade virtuals on Photon because you have to go via the virtuals token, can't trade it via ETH. And it's interesting, it's like this single site focus. What is the app for Base? How does Base look like? And then some people send me a link and send me Aerodrome, which is a DEX, or send me Uniswap, and it's like, is this Base? Is this where I trade Base? Like, no, this is actually an entire blockchain. But because you have this meme first or meme centric, like single app focus, you're like, meme trading is Photon for me. Meme trading is BullX for me. You kind of think about Base in a similarly simplistic way, and which is fair because like the user comes first, and if the user wants an easy user experience, doesn't want to have Rebbe, MetaMask, or whatever other wallet and like play around and explore 20 sites, they want to have a one-stop shop to be on Base. And Phantom is kind of helping to enable that, or at least remove a good amount of the friction by allowing you to stay on the same wallet. Photon is helping, and others are helping by allowing you to trade on Base for most of the stuff. Again, not the virtual stuff. All those things remove friction a lot, and all those things help massively to increase user number and transaction count as an extension of that.
Yeah, I think it's clearly a business opportunity for someone there to be like, look, let me build the app that will house all of this stuff. Before we go back to Sam, because I want him to do his AI roundup, and I want him to answer another question on this. There's this crazy stat which we saw, which was shared yesterday, and maybe this speaks to the exact issue that you're talking about, Legendary, that Ryan Watkins, one of the analysts we kind of pay attention to quite a lot. I'm going to share this on screen for the people who are watching in. He said 74% of venture capital in the Solana ecosystem, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit. 74% of the venture capital in the Solana ecosystem goes to applications versus 40% in Ethereum. One of the best leading indicators for why Solana will likely continue winning share of on-chain activity. And I guess that's what you're speaking to, Legendary, right? Like, people on Solana are more familiar with the apps. They've got apps that they can get comfortable with and trade within. Whereas they come over to Base, it's kind of more free. You're meant to be more conscious of this DEX and that protocol, and you've got to use this token and that token. It's just a little bit more complicated. And whilst those statistics suggest or paint ETH in a negative light because of the lack of stuff, I mean, and I think that is actually accurate. However, it does also open up the door for ETH and Base to be like, look, just build it. So can someone just go and build it? Because then that huge opportunity is, you start to take that huge opportunity and you start to tick off these criticisms that other people have. And then as soon as that person in your DMs asks you, what do you do? It's like, look, here's the answer. Go and use this. This is the place where you can navigate it. So anything to come back on that, Legendary, before we go back to Sam?
No, very much agree with that. I'm curious to hear Sam's roundup on what's going on the agent side.
Sam, anything else on the things we were just saying there, or do you want to go straight to the agent stuff?
Probably the only other comment, I mean, the spike in transactions, I think it's more so the agent side of things. And I'm curious to see whether we'll start to see that across all blockchains with more agents proliferating the internet and the market. So especially if they've got autonomy over their own wallets, it's a very limited number at the moment, but they all have tokens. So the tokens are being traded, but there are some coming to market like Vader and a few others that have their own wallets that can do their own autonomous transactions and stuff. So I think we'll probably see more of that as that populates. And actually, it'd be really interesting to see how we distinguish between if there's a human controlling that wallet or whether it's an AI agent, and to what extent do we actually care? But on-chain reputation will play into that too.
Love it. I think all of that's fair. I definitely think that huge spike is to do with this kind of this explosion of agent activity and interest. I agree with that. Leading on from that, Sam, what's the roundup on that side? You've been putting out some really great content this morning on market cap versus mindshare. Do you want to talk about that and how it relates to these AI agents?
Yeah, so Cookie is an analytics dashboard that actually came to market a couple of days ago. So I've been talking to them and giving them feedback on that. But ultimately, the data is from there that I've just on the screen now. When it starts loading, you should be able to see a chart that shows kind of mindshare versus market cap. And the reasoning behind it is you kind of expect that sort of capital will follow attention at some point. And there's a bit of a disparity between that. So I wrote an article a couple of days ago that kind of covered, okay, well, maybe it's smart engagement versus market cap that's probably more interesting, because smart engagement, potentially these guys have been tagged that have capital for various reasons and maybe are more willing to deploy. So market cap and mindshare is the chart that we've got on the screen at the moment. And that kind of shows that there's certain agents like AIXBT that has a relatively small market cap, albeit at 130 mil, but it's pretty low compared to the likes of Zero Bro and Goat, despite having way more mindshare at this point in time. And there's some sort of smaller ones as well that kind of fly under that similar radar with. So there's Census, there's Blob, which is another one that probably caught mainstream attention because there was a bit of an issue early on, but then the developer kind of made good on that, and the stuff that he's bringing to market and the engagement that he's getting is kind of like won the trust of crypto Twitter. But the market cap is relatively low to that attention that it's getting compared to these other protocols, and I'm curious as to whether that will catch up. But then there's another chart that I produced slightly after that kind of covered the smart engagement versus market cap. So if you just go to the quote tweets on that particular tweet, you should see it. Or if you just go to my profile, it should just be down there. Yeah, that's it. It's broadly similar, but there are a couple of others that have jumped up. So you've got this new one, Roastmaster 9000, which is actually a Top Hat produced agent. So it's another protocol outside of virtuals, not Vifu.fun. So this one, it's pretty provocative. It literally just roasts you, and it's getting a lot of engagement from these smart followers. But the market cap is pretty low. People have alluded to certain tokenomics. So some of these other agents that have higher market caps have probably been hoarded by bigger accounts. So maybe it's more distributed, and hence it could have some upside as people start to accumulate. But I've spoken to various people on the timeline. It's getting that attention, but it's pretty low. Vader's another one. So on that mindshare versus agent chart, it's relatively low. But when you compare it to the smart engagement to market cap, it's actually shoots up higher down the chart. And there's a lot of people that I know that are kind of interested in the direction that's going with this BlackRock of the agentic economy, that kind of investment DAO structure. And then there's a few others that have just started that are relatively young, like Radio, which Legendary alluded to yesterday on the show. That's getting a bit more attention now, and it's effectively what that does is it kind of scrapes the data off Twitter from KOLs. It then takes that data and creates like a mini radio show that's like 30 seconds long, covering what they've said. So I don't know if it's randomized, but or whether it has certain people that it's kind of tagged to follow. But that's super cool. Interesting, and it will post like relatively frequently. But we're seeing a lot of this stuff come to market that has just slight nuances. I think it was Census is another one that I just mentioned that has like a Twitch integration. So you're kind of going off platform to other platforms and trying to break out there. Misata, I think it was, that isn't on this chart, but that's kind of got a TikTok focus that recently launched, and they're trying to break onto that scene and kind of get that mind share to potentially get some exposure from people trying to buy that token over there. So the landscape is shifting so much. There's so many on here that I could talk to, like Forest, which is an AI agent that's been around for a little bit longer. It's done like a full-blown TED talk, which is pretty wild, and that kind of it's like a massive advocate for nature. So the thing's called SAN, which is Sentient Advocate of Nature, and the token's Forest, and that is kind of trying to push that whole climate change agenda. So there's just so much coming to the market, and I'm trying to keep on top of it all. But every day there's probably about 10 new interesting protocols, let alone like the hundreds of other ones that are populating. So,
okay, I've got two really important questions, which I think would be interesting to people listening. Legendary, if we could get that chart back up, please. So I think one of the core questions when it comes to evaluating the stuff, and this is a two-part question, I'll just ask the first one first. So what if you can't see in because you're not looking at the chart, what we're looking at is market cap and smart engagement by agent. And the general trend of the chart is that the higher the smart engagement, the higher engagement with an agent, the higher the market cap. But there are a few examples where that's not the case. So AIXBT is the agent with the highest smart engagement. However, it does not have, it maybe has the fourth, I think, if I'm looking at that correctly, maybe the fourth highest market cap. The second highest market cap is Zero Bro, which has been very popular for a bit more time. And then the by far the way the biggest market cap, even though it has the third most engagement, smart engagement, is GOAT. So Sam, we're talking about engagement as one of the factors for evaluating this stuff. Which you can kind of see the trend, but it doesn't work out perfectly. What are the other factors that people need to keep in mind when they're looking at these different agents? And as you said, there's so many coming to market now across the board. So smart engagement is one of the factors. What are the other things they should be thinking about?
So smart engagements at a point in time as well. So you got to remember, so that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to continue to engage. And I think that also the disconnect between, okay, well, they're engaging with it. They might find it interesting, but they might not necessarily want to deploy capital and buy the token. They just don't think it's necessarily a good investment. So you've got to consider that. It's not going to be a one-for-one correlation, like perfect correlation. I look at certain niches, like this Roastmaster 9000 that's just kind of emerging. The market leader within that particular niche is arguably the bully. So Dolos, like very engaging, like quite cutthroat. I think it's probably the third or fourth largest by market cap, and I think maybe the fourth largest by engagement. So we kind of see that on the chart, but went viral yesterday with kind of roasting Elon Musk and a few other high profile people. So I think just looking at the segment and whether that particular one is going to break out a market leader, because if there's another one that's ahead that's stealing all the attention because it's known as like provocative or gets that engagement through baiting, I don't think it's necessarily going to pop off as well. Sure. You've also got to look at maybe the holder base and like who they are, because you look at GOAT as an example, like yes, the engagement's dropped, but it's argued it's endorsed by sort of like Mark Andreessen. Like it has all that backing. People kind of see that as the initial first mover. So I don't necessarily think that even though the smart engagement drops, whether like the market cap's going to drop. So I think there's like a number of other things that you have to understand. Like, and also the tokens, right? Like you look at Fartcoin, Act, Goat. They're tokens that were endorsed by AI agents, and they're not necessarily entwined to that particular AI agent. So like, can you compare them one for one? Like, are they like apples and oranges, or are they kind of synonymous?
Yeah. I think those are all really, really good points. There's an element of history there. There's an element of who's the backer. It's an element of like the categories within the broader category, because some of those agents are not going against the other ones. They're kind of, there's smaller niches within them. So I think those are all really good points. Legendary, something I was talking to you about before the show, actually, specifically on this topic, is the proliferation of launch pads for agents as well. So one of the things I was asking, this is an open question, as I was trying to evaluate the stuff moving forward, is there going to be a specific launch pad like Virtuals, which seems to be the leader at the moment? Are those agents going to be worth more because they came from Virtuals? Or are they going to be, I think Sam, you mentioned Top Hat. There's another one called Creator Bid. Like there's other launch pads coming out. Will some of them be the premium ones? Will some of them be the less valuable ones? And one question in my head was, which one's going to be the OpenSea for agents? Can there be one? Is it the same thing? Open question at the moment. Legendary, what do you think?
It's a very good question. We kind of try to have a similar line of thought with NFTs, where we're like, who minted this NFT? The history matters. Does it matter who has owned that? I think Pranksy has asked, the big NFT collector from last cycle, has asked the inverse question. Is there something like negative provenance? Is there an NFT you would not own because it went to a certain person's wallet? And I feel like we're kind of re-exploring that train of thought with agents at the moment. My answer is, in terms of when agent originated, I don't think it matters. I think we're seeing that with Veda right now, for example, who said that agent started on Virtuals, but they hired a team of researchers, of ML experts, and they are now saying, look, so machine learning experts are this, we are now leaving the tech stack that Virtuals is offering behind, and we are like fully focusing on our own thing. So I don't necessarily think that the origination where something came from matters. For the projects, it's more interesting to see about to think about this duality that you have to enter. Like you have Virtuals as a launchpad, and to garner attention for their tech stack, for their launchpad, they had to lead with an agent. They had to lead with Luna, which is the agent that is going, where it went viral on TikTok streaming, and actually spiked in price massively before we've seen the whole Virtuals ecosystem take off right now. When Sammy brought Virtuals to my attention, as I said, like more than a month ago, Luna was the trending agent and nothing else was really happening on there. And Luna went past 200 mil to 30 mil, something like that, if I remember correctly, dropped all the way down to 40, 50 mil, has now recovered to 60, 80-ish mil. It's fluctuating a lot. So you kind of have this thing that you didn't have before, that as a launchpad for AI agents, you want to lead with your own agent. Blur never led with their own NFT collection. OpenSea never led with their own NFT collections. Launchpads kind of have to do that because it's new tech and you want to have the audience familiarize themselves with it. But it also puts the question, or it puts like a lot of strain on the team, because then you often have like a dual token ecosystem, if not more. With Virtuals especially, there's more tokens that are launched by the Virtuals launcher. There's the game one, there's the music one that launched yesterday, which was an interesting one because they airdropped some of the music supply to other traders and holders of other virtual agents and users of the platform. But you on the one hand have to be aware of like your own ecosystem token, which for Virtuals is the Virtuals token, which by the way has pumped massively over the last hour, went past $1. I think it's at $1.07 now. And then you have the own agents. So this is difficult to manage. And I think when there's a new launch pad for agents, and I'm very, very certain we're going to see a few more over the next couple of weeks and months, if they have a strong agent that already has mindshare, and then this is being followed up by a launchpad that will garner a lot of attention, I think Create a Bit, which you had mentioned before, did kind of an inverse approach. They have their own launchpad. They did not get that much attention. They had one agent that they launched with Wall Street Bets, which captured a lot of attention. And then yesterday they did launch their own agent in a very interesting form, as sort of a fair launch, where for the first 300 seconds, something like that, you could only purchase in increments of 0.05 ETH. And then the agent exploded to a multi-million-dollar valuation. So you add a lot more complexity to this ecosystem by having this dual token exposure. I don't think we can yet say which the OpenSea is going to be of the launch pads, because so many things depend on how features are evolving. We've seen agents who started on Waifu and moved on to Top Hat because they were like, hey, Top Hat is offering me this and that, and they are faster with my wallet integration, whatever. So I'm just going to move around, or who are going to spin out and do their own thing. And which is something where you don't have the equivalent. Like, it's rare that we've seen an NFT collection, say, which launched on the OpenSea shared contract. And it was like, hey, because we actually were successful, we're going to abandon that and move to our own smart contract. So it's much more feature dependent than it's been the case with the NFT marketplaces before.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot. Go on, Sam.
I think just to that point around the token as well, like just as an observation, like you see the token pumping past 1 billion. So I don't know if that means that Virtuals is officially unicorn status, but if you look at all the agents that are on that platform, and some of those have bridged to Solana, like the market cap in USD terms has pumped as well, because a lot of the time you have to go back through the Virtuals token, and Jensen, so EtherMage, alluded to this on the show when we had him 2 weeks ago. There's this value accrual that happens if people are buying the Virtuals token to then buy these agents. Like, it goes through there, it pumps up the price, but people then take profits into Virtual, which is actually increased in USD terms. So it's like a double whammy, and we're kind of seeing that. So when you then benchmark it through Cookie or through these websites in USD terms, like most of the leading agents in terms of price appreciation are Virtuals agents, and that to me is super interesting when you compare it to these other launch pads that are in Sol, and Sol's gone down, so you're taking profits back into Sol that's depreciated in price. So when you're benchmarking it, people feel good about going to Virtuals to launch that agent or engage on that platform, because they feel like that's where the premium platform is. So I think that optics plays into a little bit as well.
Yeah, I like it. Lots of different factors there. I think that was a pretty thorough examination of the way to evaluate the AI agents at the moment. Undoubtedly, we will continue that conversation as things progress, right? So many things are up in the air. There will be a lot of developments, as Legendary said, coming down the line. And we've got some of the best people who are analyzing it. Legendary and Sam have been doing a great job with that. Let's get to probably the final headline for today, though, which is the Hyperliquid news. Legendary, what is Hyperliquid? Why are people so excited about this? What's the breakdown? What do you think is going to happen?
This is a very interesting case to look at. So first of all, Hyperliquid is a decentralized perpetual exchange that has done a lot of volume, sharing this on screen right now via DeFi Llama. The 24-hour volume, $2.4 billion US, all-time volume, 427 bill. So that is very, very significant. Put that in comparison to something like Wintermute. Wintermute has done a cumulative trading volume of $5,500-ish billion. So this is almost a tenth of that volume coming off a decentralized per platform, which is pretty insane. And they have the TGE event, the Hype Genesis event, as they call it, tomorrow. Before I get into tokenomics, I'm sharing this article on screen. I actually want to start with the last line. The interesting part of it is there are no allocations for private investors, centralized exchanges, or market makers. So this is as clean of a decentralized launched as it gets. And if we then scroll up to have a look at the tokenomics, so TGE is tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. UTC, and with a total supply of 1 billion tokens, with a split as follows: 39%, almost 39% to future emissions and community rewards, 31% to the Genesis distribution, which is the initial airdrop, 23.8% to current and future core contributors, 6% for their foundation budget, 0.3% for community grants, which if you add that up, you arrive at a staggering amount of 76.2% of the tokens going to the community. And again, that is with a very, very generous initial distribution for the Genesis airdrop. In terms of valuation and speculation on that, we can take a quick look on the pre-TGE markets. I'm sharing Wales market for that on screen. Obviously, volume is up massively on that news, up 1,300%. But as I always say, please keep in mind, we're talking about very, very low volume numbers. 24-hour volume is 58,000. Total volume on that is 974,000. Token price is actually down a bit, but it's standing at $3.6. Which would put it at a $3.6 billion FTV with the assumption, well, not the assumption, with the information that we know there's going to be 1 billion tokens. Again, for me, the interesting case, and also the main reason why I want to revisit this piece of news on the show tomorrow, because the TG will happen before the show, is to see how it does in this purely decentralized environment where you're not paying for a listing, for an exchange listing, where you're not paying a market maker, where you're not trying to manage tokenomics with VCs in mind who also want to unlock their stuff and sell, where there's no KOLs who have invested in that, but it's like basically as pure as a launch can be. And I'm very curious to see how that experiment will go.
It is very curious, isn't it? I'm super interested as well from that perspective. I think one of the things we've observed in the last few months is two things. One, the proliferation of fair launches via Pump Fund. And so this kind of bonding curve, and that being a way to just get your token distributed. And then the second thing that's been happening simultaneously is the low float, high FDV tokens have performed very, very badly over the last few months, to the point where it seems like centralized exchanges are almost very unwilling to list anything that's previously been invested in, is finding it very difficult to get an exchange listing unless you give up an ungodly amount of tokens to get listed. And even then, it hasn't necessarily worked out very well. So I think that teams are having to be far more creative in the ways that they come to market. And this might not be an option that is available to everyone, right? It seems like there are literally no VCs in Hyperliquid. That's just not a realistic reality for 99% of teams, probably. But I do think that there are other teams who have been doing things more interesting or innovating, in the sense that, for example, the Rect token by OV and Rect Drinks came out the other day, and they just went full liquid. Like, I think they kept a few back for community, but they just went full liquid. Like, forget the tokenomics. I mean, yes, there was some tokenomics, and you know, there was something there, but there wasn't like vesting, and there wasn't like all of these other additional things. They're just like, get it out there. And I don't know, it feels like this Pump Fund dynamic where everything's just liquid, and then everyone knows what the situation is. There it is. It's just put it out on the table. That's the vibe that we're moving towards. I want to go to Sam for his thoughts on that. And Legendary, maybe you close us off for the show.
Yeah, I think the phantom markets and the whole value capture that happens in those behind the scenes is, I think, just retail's just wised up to it, and people aren't interested in buying the top on that stuff. Because there's definitely a period over the past couple of years where you go on Binance, and if anything was listed on there, if you bought it, pretty much be down only. So I get why retail's gone to that whole pump fund launch kind of meta, because that is literally the fairest that it seems to be in the market. Like that approach is now proliferating across like AI agents, like through different ways of just launching it to the people. I mean, I know there's ways that people snipe that early, but ultimately over time, I think it's a fairer launch, and I think it kind of gives that opportunity for retail to then capture some of that value as the token appreciates, which wasn't really previously available.
Legendary, close us out.
You also have to see the other side of that. So very much agree with the fair launches. But if you don't execute them in a good way, you lose so much goodwill. And definitely want to quickly bring up the example that we've seen yesterday play out with Today the Game, which is a game that we covered on the show quite a few times when they had news to share, and they did launch a pump fund. However, they wanted to get some supply on their own, so they basically relaunched the same token 3 times until on the 3rd attempt they managed to buy enough supply at a price that they wanted to have and found fair to do. And obviously with that faced so much criticism on the timeline, despite saying, look, we want that token to be able to airdrop it to holders, etc., but they managed to lose a very, very great amount of the goodwill that they have built over the course of the last year, unfortunately.
Yeah, really good point. If you're going to do the fair launch, do it fairly. I can't imagine that there wouldn't have been a way for them to say, we do want to do this fair launch, but just keep 10% for ourselves or 20% for ourselves. And then with the remaining 80%, that is what is being launched. I cannot believe that that wasn't an option that someone can choose with the smart contracts when you set that up. But here we are. This is crypto. This is the future of finance. Sometimes these things happen. But guys, that was a great show. A lot of agent stuff, a lot of crypto stuff, a lot of price going up, which is also very nice to discuss. We do this every single day for the people who are here for the first time, second time. Just a reminder, we're available on YouTube, on X Video, on X Spaces, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We'll be here again with you tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour, and the week after that too, because we do this every day. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us. Take care, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.